All right, so that is now live, and I'll share a link with you guys. All right, so you guys can join me on the YouTube link. I'll turn off my mic and camera here. All right, and so here we are on YouTube. Just let me know, guys, that you can hear me correctly. All right, so yeah, so this is not bad. I might like to see the smoke particles themselves like dissipate more. It's almost like a static kind of asset that you're just kind of populating and kind of moving. But what you did do a good job of is the getting the constant acceleration, where it comes out, it's kind of moving a little slowly, then it gradually speeds up as it rises. You may also pull back on the transparency, or pull back on the opacity, so it becomes more transparent as it goes up into the air. Okay, and they may also get larger, dissipate, get larger, while simultaneously getting more transparent. Something to think about if that is something that you can, if you can do it programmatically. I mean, that would be great. But cool. Small little touch, actually, looking at this, it would be nice if the lid on the chimney opens when smoke comes out and drops down when it's closed. So I think that would be a really nice touch. To take it a step further, maybe a little cling clang kind of sound effect when that happens would be kind of neat as well. All right, cool explosion. I like that. Not bad, not bad. Cool. I think you could spend a little bit more time letting it dissipate, but not bad. You may also want to get some smoke going with the explosion, Dante. But I think that'll look pretty cool, especially with a nice sound effect. This gives me a very kind of 16-bit. It might be a little higher than 16-bit, but a very 16-bit style animation vibe to it. And I can picture the sound effect like a really not pixelated, but like a really low bit depth kind of audio track, like something approximating an explosion rather than an actual sampled explosion sound effect. But that's cool. Great reference. This is like such an awesome shot from that anime. Cool. So we talked about this, Mohit. The only thing I would say is just make sure that you've divvied up your effects such that it's not all moving together. And you want things to dissipate on screen in place, right? So you almost want to have a few separate effects stacked, right? And the character moves, but then the beam of light stays in the position where it was initiated, and it kind of dissipates from there, right? So that's kind of the thing that you want to have. And you can imagine that this beam of light that kind of gets thinner and thinner, and starts breaking up, and then eventually blinks out of existence while the character has gone further forward, right? So that's kind of the thinking that you want to have for that. This one, I like the idea. The cracking needs reference. I think you need to reference the way the crack works. What's going to happen with the crack is usually you'll have like one almost like a main crack, and then branching parts that come off of that. So think of that. What's that main crack that happens, and then the branches that come off of that, and then the way it falls. The way it falls, I think, is okay, but the cracking part you'll want to revisit, I think. Um, and take your time with the way you're doing the cracks as well. It doesn't read quite right. Cracks are a little too big. You'll probably want to go a little subtler with that, but definitely use reference. Make sure that you are looking at a good example of how something cracks. Maybe even in slow mo. If you can get a slow motion video of something cracking, I think that would be great. And I would jump on YouTube and show you something, but I am worried about copyright infringement stuff. So, but yeah, good idea. It needs more kind of love in terms of the execution, primarily in terms of the way the cracks are distributed. And in fact, I would say that you could probably get away with like maybe a third or even a quarter of the number of cracks that you have here, but then spend 4 times as much time kind of focusing on making those cracks look accurate, or even spend half that time looking at reference, getting good reference, and then the remaining extra time to do the cracks properly. All right, cool. All right, so again, another so this one does animate, this moves, but this one potentially runs into the problem of clipping out, right? So you kind of run into that masking issue. Anytime you guys have an effect, it would be better, in fact, to have the effect, just keep it still. Don't even move it in here. Just keep it static in the center, and then just have it kind of have your curled line, and then kind of gradually get shorter, shorter, and shorter. And then that's it. And then when you bring it into your game engine, you just move it programmatically. You tell it to lerp from one position to the next position, right, on the x-axis or whatever it is, versus letting the movement be driven by the actual animation itself. Okay, so just let the animation do its own thing, and then control its position in game, just like you would with a walk cycle. All right, so it's not bad, Andy. I think you probably want to get a better initial explosion. I think the way the smoke dissipates kind of works. You might want to go for the constant acceleration upward as well. But the way the smoke dissipates, or the way the initial explosion happens, could use a little bit of work. All right, William, not bad, not bad. Find a good ending for this. Like, it doesn't take your time in letting the effect fully clear before you end it, because it feels like it's an abrupt ending at this point. You land, but then the smoke goes, and then it kind of just ends. It doesn't dissipate or become transparent or get smaller. You need to have some kind of closure there. So you have a good start, but you need to kind of work on that. And the movement, the timing, it all works. I think the appearance of the smoke could be kind of dressed up a little bit more, rather than just being squiggly lines and everything like that. We could do a little more with that. Nice touch to have the character kind of dropping in. If you want to continue with that, make the character kind of stand up at the end, and have like a nice kind of overlapping action, and settle into that final pose. Okay. Cool. Neat. Cool. So this is an explosion as well, I guess. Because we're on YouTube, I do apologize. I'm not going to look at the references. Okay, so Nazifa, you had a question about this, or your in-game animation. I think this is great. I think this is good. A little uncontrolled, I think. A little too wild, especially with that purple on the inside. I think try to map out where it's coming from, where it's going better, so it doesn't seem like it's kind of popping and jumping randomly. And then maybe the timing too. Like, I think it could burst quicker and then dissipate more slowly. And when it dissipates, it should continue to rise, and I don't think it should dissipate into those thin lines. It should kind of become its own little clusters. Not okay. Not fully me not fully under knowing what it is specifically you're going for, because I could see like some kind of weird special effect. I could see this being like something I look at from the top down, like a little amoeba that bubbles up to the surface and then kind of finds a crack in the ground and then kind of hides in that crack in the ground. I could see it maybe being an explosion, but if it's an explosion, then you kind of need to work on the way it dissipates a little bit better. Or I could see it like being water bubbles or something. Again, maybe kind of bubbling up and then finding some little crevice or something that it escapes through on its way to the surface. But beyond that, like it's the you have the right idea. It's just a matter of maybe I don't have the reference, unfortunately. Beyond that, like you have the right idea. Is somebody talking in the Google Meet or no? Or am I hearing myself? Okay, hang on a second. Let me just remind my family that I am teaching.
I want to say it was like the explosion. I had my mic on. Sorry,
Oh,
that's
okay.
why.
It's an
So
explosion.
I want to say it was like the explosion. I had my mic on. Sorry, that's why.
Okay, so it's an explosion.
Yeah, it is an explosion.
Okay, all right, cool.
And my question was for the assignment we had,
Yeah.
cause like yeah. So is it okay if I ask the question though?
We'll come back to that. So
Okay.
we'll go through these and I'll come back to those after. Okay, cool. All right. This is kind of cool. Cool reference. So again, got the smoke going. Not bad. My comments for this one. Watch the heavy line. That's a design choice. Don't. If you're gonna do it deliberately. My personal preference, I don't like it. I'd rather see a very minimal, very, very, very thin line, like almost as thin as the line here we have bordering these entries, right? Something really understated, or have no line at all, right? If you're gonna do a heavy line like that, it draws a lot of attention to itself. It is a very, or it should be a very deliberate design choice. Okay, not just this is the size the brush was, so I just stuck with that. Because if you just go with that regular brush size, it will be to the detriment of your overall kind of design of your illustration or animation or whatever it is. So if you're gonna do that, do it deliberately. And it looks like also that with that heavy line, you've kind of copy pasted, and so the same shape, one having the same thickness of line relative to its size. And so it doesn't seem super deliberate there either, where you have a thin line version and a thick line version. So try to figure out.
So the smaller cloud is the one that is the original.
Okay, so the smaller cloud is original. Okay, so the line on that's a little bit more palatable. Still a little thick. And then when you've blown it up, then the line just has blown up with it, right? So just be mindful of that. Good reference. The thing with this is you'll probably want to see how it's not that obvious,
so,
but it does get.
Yeah, I might just draw it like
okay.
Again.
Yeah, I mean it shouldn't take that long, and the smoke gets bigger, and it also becomes more transparent. So maybe kind of investigate what that looks like. But yeah. Okay. And then okay, so this is a car dropping. Same thing. Just reference how that smoke dissipates. It seems like that you're kind of in a rush to get it off the screen because it is a lot of pencil mileage, right? And that's totally normal. But it does not help the sequence. If you're like, okay, I have it, let's get this off screen so I can stop, redrawing this as soon as possible, it is to the detriment of the sequence. So let it linger. Don't be afraid of that pencil mileage, or that one cloud that's so big and it's going to take 30 frames, or 50 frames, or maybe more to fully disappear. If you do that, it will really, if done well, it will really kind of bring a lasting effect to this, to whatever happens, right? And it'll just feel like unrushed. It'll feel more satisfying, and so that's something to think about and keep in mind. Could do even less clouds, but work on them a little bit longer, and let them stick around longer. The other option is the blender option, where you do less drawings, but you find a way to in between them, right? So you just shrink the size, or use the sculpting brushes to kind of change the position and things like that, and then kind of let the computer generate all those in-betweens for you. Okay. The other thing that would be cool with this, if this is a car dropping, it'd be cool if the car was big and then boom, it got small. Maybe it bounced or something too. I like the shaking. I see what you're doing there, but I think a bounce would be more satisfying. So it's like big, or it's big, right? And then it gets small, boop, 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 right? And then we have something like that. I think that would be a little bit more interesting. But yeah, my 2 cents. That's my feedback. If you have the opportunity to revisit this for your GDW games on Friday, I would definitely endeavor to do so. Okay. Let's see what we've got here. That's kind of cool. Cool. I think it works. I would love to see how well this loops. So let's see. Cool. Yeah. I like it. My big comment for this one, Jordan, is that the design of the electricity could be better. So I think the animation is totally perfect and fine. I think the total animation is great, but I think the shapes of those lines are a little too uniform in terms of the overall width. I think with an electricity thing like this, we'd expect the line to have some thicker parts and some thinner parts, and kind of be a little bit more stylized. I like the kind of indirect nature of the lines, but I think the lines themselves are a little on the simple side. So I think you could kind of revisit that. If this was done in Blender, then you can kind of do some post effects, or you can kind of go in and afterwards and adjust the thickness of different parts of the line, like we looked at, so you could kind of build off of what you have. Otherwise, it's not that hard to go into Krita and just kind of revisit some of those lines, make them a little thick in some spots and thinner in other spots, so you have a little more variety there. But nice. I think with a nice sound effect, this would be really cool. That red in the background seems a little soft and fuzzy. Without looking at the reference, I would suggest maybe making that a little bit more sharper in terms of the edge definition, and more stylized as well. But overall, I think solid. Presentation wise, let's get these wires like reading more nicely as well. You want to invest some time into the things that don't move, right? Any kind of static element like these wires or the background, because you're drawing it, you don't have to redraw it over and over and again, and you're getting like so many minutes worth of, or times worth of use from it. Spend more time rendering it and making it look nice, and then the animation frames can be quicker. Okay, cool, nice. This is great. This is really good. So this doesn't feel rushed. It feels like you've taken your time and you've let the effect kind of play itself out to its own natural kind of conclusion. So that looks great. I'd love to see it in context. So this is from top down. If this is from top down, then maybe it wouldn't work as well. From top down, I wouldn't expect the particles to all move in the same direction. If it's from like a side view, and the character boom lands and then the smoke kicks up, I think then it works better. So the only reason I'm thinking is it top down is because I'm seeing this reference and it looks like it's a kind of a top down view of a foot kicking up some dust. But beyond that, this looks great. Like, really good job. Also have a kind of a thick line on this. For whatever reason, it doesn't bother me quite as much. Not sure exactly why that is, and I think it might be that the thickness of the line seems more deliberate because within you have thick lines as well. So you have like thick interior lines. You have like a certain amount of harmony within the colors, so it's kind of all just reads together to me. So I think that's pretty effective. I will say that I don't think this thick line helps in any way, but I don't think it hurts that much in this particular case. But this looks pretty solid. I'd love to see it in context. Cool. I think this is neat too. Nice. Nice to see it in context here too. Cool. Now the only comment I would give for this one is that, see how like at the beginning you have like it sparks here and then it sparks here and then it sparks here, so it's kind of uneven. I think that's effective when it all kind of happens together, like it's synchronized. It seems like a fireworks display show or something like that. It kind of diminishes its chaoticness and its realism. So I think the effects overall that you have are great, but be mindful of the timing so that it's not happening like, all in concert. Like it's not all happening at the exact same time. So yeah, but beyond that, I think it's solid. I think, you may want to layer this with some other stuff. It would be neat, and it looks like it's kind of happening, but it's not that clear. It would be neat if these fell on the ground and bounced around a little bit, these little embers or these little sparks, before kind of cooling down and maybe changing color. I mean, not that sparks really do that. They just kind of just spark out. I don't even know like what's sparks. They wouldn't be actual things. They just have to do some research and to figure out like what do sparks look like and how do they kind of come to an end. It's not like an ember from a fire, right? Or like a little piece of something that was burnt. It's going to be a little different. But you definitely want them to look like they kind of bounce off the ground if possible. And you kind of have that. But maybe if they bounce a little further, maybe some of them bounce twice and go out a little bit further would be kind of nice. That in addition to maybe play with the timing so it's more offset, so it's not all happening at the same time. So you get more of the spark here and you get a little less of the spark here. You might even try going in, taking your animation and maybe cropping part of it and then playing it, cropping this into 3 separate chunks, and then offsetting when you run them, or offset how frequently they run. So basically, if you cut this into 3 separate chunks, so you have a top part, middle part, and bottom part, and then, say it's like 30 frames altogether. Imagine if you could fire this one, every 30 frames it loops. But this one fires, it's 15 frames. So it'll fire its 30 frame animation, and then it'll kind of wait for 15 frames, and then it'll fire. And this one, maybe it's like, you wait 30 frames in between. So then you kind of get this kind of like offset in the overall sequence. So you have one sequence, an animation that you start with, but then you break it up and then you can disguise it as more. I think that would be kind of interesting. So just something to think about. Okay, so not too bad. Mark here, I think more reference though. You want to look more carefully at what actually happens to a raindrop. So I don't see a reference included, but that is something that I feel like is missing that would have been helpful. And then if your raindrop is dropping, do yourself a favor, plan it out, put a vertical line so it doesn't fall diagonally. You're kind of drifting off to the side here in a strange way. Okay. And then use your reference to find out what actually happens. Does the raindrop jiggle a little bit before breaking apart? Does it kind of break out into separate pieces immediately? And what does all that look like? Cool. Another spark. Wow, this is great. Very nice. Very, very good. Isaac, man, this is excellent. Cool. Very good. Can't wait to see this in your game. But no, really, really well done. Good job. Nice planning too. Good reference. No, this is good. Nothing to say about this one really. I even like it with the lines. It's got a more cartoony effect, but I think it works well without them. Cool. Yeah, no, nice stuff. I guess the only comment I might make, for whatever reason, it looks like it's curving away from us. It almost looks like something's being fired close to us, and then these things are being shot into the distance, into the sky, into the distance, versus like it being a small spark. Reason being, maybe it's a slight bit of an arc on these, right? Which maybe is some gravity, which is fine. But the size, the way they're kind of like going, it seems like the trajectories are starting to get foreshortened, and they're like moving down a path that is pointed away from us. What is effective about this one? Lines automatically flatten things out, so they give everything a more 2D appearance. When we remove lines, we get more of a three-dimensional appearance. And so I think in this case, the lines help to disguise maybe the trajectory of each of the points, and make it seem like it's a little bit more of a flat effect. But then when you remove the lines, it starts to kind of, based on the movement and the motion, it feels like it's kind of moving away from us. So anyways, just something to be aware of, but really solid stuff. I like it. Very, very good job, Isaac. Okay, let's loop this. So this is the challenge with fire. Ryan is getting to sync up with itself, and for the last frame to hook up properly with the first frame. So I think you need to work a little bit more in that regard. And right now it just kind of seems like it's twisting, kind of going like that, versus like kind of fire kind of billowing up, you know what I mean? So you want to kind of get that sense of energy kind of flowing upwards, and then more energy replacing it from below, and it kind of flowing upwards and kind of dissipating as it loses its kind of source of fuel. So just kind of keep an eye on that. Closely look at like references of flames, and continue with that. There are a couple of good books on for 2D animation. Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna grab one. So, just for those interested, there's a book called Elemental Magic. There's 2 volumes, but it basically breaks down like all kinds of effects animation. It really does a good job of kind of breaking it down. And effects animators are like fascinated by kind of the natural world and how things move, and the physics of, that's of movement and how things kind of work in nature, right? And they kind of go out and they study waves and like look at how do waves kind of flow and that kind of thing. But for those again who are interested, this is a very valuable book. I have not read it myself. I've too many things to learn, but you can kind of see it's really kind of handy reference. It's got a kind of careful analysis on how things move. These are the guys who carefully analyze slow motion footage and painstakingly kind of redraw what they see and do all the kind of effects for like those Disney movies, and well, at least when they used to be 2D and things like that. So okay, all right, so here we have this. So nice start, nice idea overall. I think again, common theme, just getting a little maybe impatient with the resolution and trying to bring it to too abrupt of a conclusion. Let it really kind of play itself out. Let those clouds slowly dissipate, and just look at that last frame, draw a slightly smaller version, go to the next frame, draw a slightly smaller version, slightly smaller version, slightly smaller version, until it eventually turns into a speck of dust and it blinks out of existence. If you rush these things, it just won't read that well. So something to be mindful of. It does take the extra time, but it is so valuable and so worth it. Okay, so here we have a landing animation. Okay, so not really an effect. Okay, so this is not bad, Robbie. This is art, this reference. Okay, so let's look here. So see how there is a kind of a general movement to the outside.
Gavin, we can't see your screen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Sorry. So back to this one. I was just saying the explosion effect is a little too abrupt. You'll want to let it kind of resolve itself more naturally. So take your time with it. It feels like there was a rush to let it come to a conclusion, so that you could get away from all that drawing, right? But I think it would be better served by letting it gradually fade, or let these particles or these clouds gradually diminish and kind of naturally kind of come to a close. This one is just not really an effects animation, so can't really comment on it. Oh, never mind. Okay, simple, but I think it's effective. It works. I think for what's there, I might run it all faster. Okay, so it's more of a instead of a slow, instead of it being smoke. I think this would work better as like dirt and like kind of rocks and debris getting kicked up, right? Because it doesn't move slow enough and it's not kind of billowy enough for smoke. I think it could work better as dirt or something like that. It's kind of in that in between spot. So revisit whatever reference you have, just to kind of get a sense of what that ought to look like. So here's a great reference, really nicely kind of dissipates, and it's not that many frames. See how these forms, they kind of break up into smaller versions of the smells and smaller versions, and it's like that science thing, that science experiment where you can have the same volume of ice in a giant block, and then with a series of ice cubes. And the ice cubes, if you put them in a warm water environment, they'll dissolve faster, right? Because it's kind of like a divide and conquer thing. Versus the one giant block where the inside, stays intact and doesn't come into contact with the warmer water. So if you want to get your stuff off screen faster, break it up into smaller chunks and let each of those little chunks kind of dissipate on their own. So you kind of have that going here, Robbie. You're just want to, again, not let it kind of come to too quick of a conclusion. A, and then B, sorry, that, and then it also kind of all blinks out at the same time. It all feels like the end overall feels like premature. So just try to let it kind of more naturally resolve. And then look at the reference. They have a neat thing. Don't have to do this, but there's kind of a neat swirl that happens on each of these separate smoke clouds as they dissipate. There's kind of like you kind of see the swirl that happens in each of them. So you kind of get a sense of not only the puff, but then kind of like a puff and a curl simultaneous, which is really, really nice. So great reference, but try to look at it closely, analyze it, and see if you can kind of get some of that happening in your own piece as well. And the small pieces in the center, they should blink out faster. The bigger ones should take longer to dissolve and dissipate. Cool, great references. Not bad. Cool. My main issue with this, a little too symmetrical. So let's try to go more asymmetrical. It looks like this one effect is just mirrored on both sides, and that's kind of unnatural. And then it's not maybe not here, I don't know, but same as what I mentioned here. I think this would be neat for a nice little curling effect as well. And I find a lot of the submissions I'm seeing, it's almost like everything disappears on the same frame. Could be wrong about that, but it seems like everything's kind of disappearing almost in sync. So don't be afraid to let this part disappear first, and then this part disappear next, and then this part, and then this part. So we do get a strong sense of that, and then kind of like a nice curl effect at the end. Other than that, I think this works well, but they have the symmetry issue, and then the too even kind of disappearance of all the puffs of smoke. Cool, this one's interesting. I love the idea. I like what you're going with. I think it's like you're really onto something. This is really, really interesting. However, at one point it kind of gets a little bit too what's the word I'm looking for? It gets almost like cells dividing, it becomes too prescribed. It becomes a little bit too like formulaic, if that makes sense. That could be intentional, and maybe this is like, these are a little like maybe it's supposed to look very orderly, but I think you need to find a way to pull in a little bit more chaos into this and let it be a little bit more different. But I love the way it kind of the smoke generator kind of slides across the ground, and I like the way everything dissipates. You haven't rushed any of that, but here, and maybe you did this, and maybe you just duplicated the one. You created one and then you just duplicated across. That's kind of what it looked like. What it looks like. Or you took this one and duplicated it up here. You can get away with it, but play with the timing more. Don't let them all happen at the same time. But even better would be to take more of a unique approach to each aspect. And as much drawing as it feels like, and I know it probably feels like a lot of drawing if you haven't done it a lot before, it's not nearly as involved as doing a simple walk cycle, right? It's challenging in other ways, but it is not nearly so challenging to make sure, the last drawing hooks up with the first drawing, with the exception of doing something like fire, right? Fire is exceedingly challenging. Like really good fire and flames, it's challenging to do. because it does require careful planning, and there's like a hidden strategy that exists there. But overall, definitely I like the approach. I think just find a way to make it, all aspects of this more unique. Cool. Small, but I think it works pretty well. Cool. It's just same thing as I've been mentioned to other people. The last frame, be mindful of it. Don't leave anything on screen that you want to be gone. So let it kind of naturally dissipate, so that you don't have some holdover, right? That you don't want on screen anymore. Okay, not too bad, not too bad. It works. It loops. The only thing is it's kind of like even, right? It's kind of up, big, small, big, small, big, small. So it kind of works, but you can find a way to make it maybe more wavy, more make it undulate a little bit better. But it does work for the most part, so not bad there. I can imagine, it if it is a bullet trail, like the thing's moving across, and then that thing is kind of going like almost like a steady kind of rhythmic kind of flame that kind of comes out at the back, right? So I think in that regard it probably could work, but you could probably play with it a little bit more to kind of get it more of that wavy motion, maybe less obvious volume changes, but not bad. Cool, not bad either. I like the start. I think the finish, you can continue with that spiral that you have, and again, kind of play with which parts disappear first, like the earlier parts of the path kind of dissipating first, and then the later parts, and then the next, and the next, and so on and so forth. So it's not too bad. It kind of looks like two separate animations. So you have the swirl, and then like the puff at the end. But I think I would try to retain that swirl throughout, and then just change which parts break into smaller parts first, right? And then disappear first, and then which parts kind of break into smaller parts next, and then disappear next, and so on and so forth. Cool. Not bad. I think that the timing just needs some work here. It's very quick. This second drip is very quick. And I would look at some good reference of like what that splash would look like, because usually it's gonna hit, it's gonna billow out, right, and then it'll kind of like part of it will come back and kind of go up, and then some will break off and go drip, but maybe there's a part here that kind of flattens out as well. But overall, pretty solid. I think it's pretty solid. It'll work, I think, in game. Laser beam, cool, nice. Cool. So how does the laser beam end? I guess it can end the way it began. You could ping pong it, but I think it would be cool. And I wish I could find a good example, but like where I'm just thinking of anime, like when you see a laser kind of goes and then kind of breaks apart. You see like it's almost like a thread with parts of it catching light and some parts not. So it's kind of like a lost and found line that eventually just disappears. I think that would be kind of a neat ending, especially if it ends from the part it started from. So if it's going across like this, if this part starts to break up as it goes back down first, deteriorates here, the line gets broken here, so it thins back out, the line here gets broken, and then starts getting broken here, and then the whole line starts to eventually just kind of completely dissipate as well. Okay, needs some work, I think. Reference, like this is okay to look at this, but look at some real reference if you can, of like a balloon popping. We looked at the water balloons last week, but try to find like an actual balloon just to see what that actually looks like. Cool, not bad, not bad. Cool. Neat. Cool. So it's a little symmetrical, especially here at the top. Let's try to find and get away. Try to find a way to get it kind of working a little better here. I like the charge up. I think it's neat. Okay, it's kind of puppet style animation, but it definitely works, so not bad. At the bottom of the feet, maybe you find a way to get the flames reading as like they're better in contact with the ground better. And maybe kind of just flatter here and then lifting up over here. But I think overall, like, it's not a bad strategy the way you've approached it. You can have these kind of teeth on the flames kind of radiate and move up around the form. It's pretty effective, not bad. Okay, and you got not too bad. I think this could read more nicely. Probably want to get more perspective going there where the stars turn around, or just have like a more fluid movement overall. It feels like they're kind of jumping and popping around. And small thing, but if you're gonna have a outline on your character, probably want to get something similar on your stars, unless they're all on a darker black background, and then you could kind of read it better. But yellow on white gets lost a little bit, so it's slightly hard to evaluate as a result of that. Okay, so get some reference to see, whatever effect you're going for, so that you have like a bit more of a target to work towards, so you can kind of better analyze, what is effective in this reference, and then how can I kind of emulate that in my own piece. Okay. All right, so I would love to see how this loops, right? So I ideally want to have this as a looping animation. Let's loop it. I mean, I guess it works. It's kind of cool. Cool. Not exactly FX animation, but it's kind of neat. I think it'll serve its purpose in the project, in your game. Okay. Okay, so it's interesting, like wipe. A little on the uniform side, maybe you kind of have it splash down on one side more than the other. And if it's, I kind of read it as paint kind of falling down, and then kind of, so maybe kind of a more randomness to that trail that's being left behind as well. Cool. Looks all right. Again, we need to probably see this in context, but cool. This is cool too. I think these smoke lines could be done more nicely, but nice to see the way you're just playing with the lighting of the thing. Like, that's a totally valid approach. If this is lighting up, you may also want to lighten the dirt around it, right? The patches that are closest, that are facing this. So if you think of this as like an upwards facing plane, these would catch more light. So as these shards glow, the ground around it would catch more light, and that would glow too. Okay, so this seems like pretty ambitious. It looks like you didn't quite get all the way through, but not a bad start. Oh, I'm not supposed to do that. Sorry. I will not play it. Nice looking reference here. Okay, I think this will work. Cool. Two-tone on this would be nice. It might be there, and it's just hard to read. And I definitely need to see this in context as well. But I can see a character sliding and dirt getting kicked up or something like that. Or taking off and dirt getting kicked up. Cool. Nice. Not bad. Not bad. I think think you might let this. I think it's pretty solid. I kind of, I guess, feels almost like a wave, like water, right? Part of it feels like a wave, part of it feels like dust. So it seems like a splash. I guess that's what I'm responding to. In some ways, it seems more like a splash than dust kicking up. But I mean, it still works. I think a two-tone on this would also be effective, but not bad, not bad. Like it could be mud, maybe mud. I think I see mud because it kind of got more of a splashy kind of vibe to it. Cool, pixelated dust. So for you again, also just be mindful of when it starts. It seems like it's starting before they hit the ground, and then when it dissipates and how it dissipates. Let it kind of kick up and then kind of dissipate naturally. Okay, same thing here. Just take your time. Okay. It's a little hard to tell, but I'll have to see it probably in game and see what that looks like. I think it might be better if it kicks up above the ground versus below, like a shock below the ground. But that's my kind of impression from looking at. Not a bad jump, kind of off balance backwards, but we're not talking about that right now. Oh, ground cracks. So if the ground cracks, I kind of expect it to stay cracked, and it doesn't quite look like cracks as much as it looks like a shock wave. So it would be cool if it did crack, but like you'll want to maybe make a brick that has a cracking animation, and then it stays cracked. So an uncracked version, a cracked version, and then a cracking version that is animated to transition, and then swap out the uncracked version for the cracked version after the cracking happens. I think that would be really neat, and that's like kind of like a really cool feedback thing, for a game. That you're not just kicking up dust; you're actually breaking the ground when you land on it. That'd be super neat. That'd be cool. I think just again more time, more attention needs to happen here, and I can't fully see what you're going for. So it's not bad, not bad at all. A little bit of the kind of the back and forth, so the end doesn't quite hook up with the beginning. It is so it needs some work in that regard, but I like the way these little flame parts are kind of coming off the form, so not bad. The reference is like far fewer frames, it looks like, which in this case kind of works. You have a few more in betweens, which is effective. I like it, but try to avoid the see up and then pop back down. Try to see if you can't find a nicer hookup from the end to the beginning. And generally speaking, you almost want to think of like this part of the flame is moving upwards. So just like these parts are coming up, this main body of the flame is moving up, and then moving up, and then moving up, and each one is being replaced by a new part. So for your last part, as the kind of the beginning kind of ends and kind of flickers off, you want to have that replaced by another part, okay? And that should hook up with your first drawing. So that's kind of idea. Almost think of it like three parts kind of moving upwards in different phases, and then having to hook up back again with the beginning. So not a lot of frames here. This could be really cool, cool short stylized animation, but I think as it is, it needs work. Primarily because it looks like it's jumping. Maybe that's the intention, but I feel like this should be kind of more fixed, the base, and then let the body kind of move. And it is similar to this, very few frames, but I feel like this is like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. This is like only 3 frames, it looks like. This is 2 or 3. It's hard to tell. But it can work, but you need to just kind of spend more time with it. Okay? A little rushed. Not bad. Cool. Nice. Interesting. It'll be curious to see how this works in the game. I guess this is a big background piece, but that's cool. I like it. Nice. It's breath. Cool. Nice. Another cool one. My only thing I would say about this one is that it'll look weird if the character's running. If this is an idle, that's one thing. If they're moving, and I've said this to other people, you want to handle this as a separate effect, and maybe it is, in which case, totally fine. If it's something you layer on top, you generate it and kind of let it stay in place as the character is moving. I think that's effective. The only thing I would say there is it's kind of strange how it slows down and then speeds up. Speeds up, slows down, speeds up. So that's the only kind of strange thing about it for me. Cool. Not bad. I think the only thing I would say about this one is take your time in breaking these bigger clouds into smaller cloud pieces. So you did take your time in letting it fully dissipate, but I think you rushed in terms of how you went from the bigger clouds to smaller cloud pieces. So you may want to kind of look at that and more closely analyze, where it should kind of start breaking up first. And whether it should all happen at exactly the same time. It feels like very scheduled, So see if you can offset that a little bit more, right? Have the right side break up sooner and then the left side break up a beat or two later, right? And I think that will give it a more natural appearance. Cool, Flame. I think this is great. Good job. Simple, effective. It works. I think you get your seaweed going a little bit better, but it is a flame. It's got to flicker a little bit. I think it's pretty effective. Yeah, not too bad. Good. Another nice flame. Solid. Good job. Nice stuff. Cool. Okay.
Ooh, thank God. I need that money. I'm literally paying. I don't want my stereo to get stolen. Ooh, thank God. I need that money. I'm literally paying. I don't want my stereo to get stolen.
Well, that's interesting. So
Ooh,
I don't know
God.
exactly what's happening, but
I need that money.
But I think crack is
I'm
actually
literally
fairly
paying.
effective
I don't want
here.
my stereo to get
So
stolen.
just like I spoke about in the earlier example, you kind of have it
Ooh, thank
emanating and
God.
starting somewhere and kind of
I need that money.
gradually going and breaking.
I'm literally paying. I don't want my stereo to get stolen.
But I think you could further reference that, get some good reference in, try to get that even more effective than what you have there. Whoa, this is crazy. Wow, this is great, Nathan. Cool. So, I guess this is going to be on an energy weapon or something like that. Cool. I think the only thing I might say about this is it pops kind of right here a little bit. And then you'll want to think, assuming this is a sphere, like an orb, ideally you'll get that foreshortening working better. So you'll get faster movement through the middle of the form and slower movement around the edges. Because as things turn away from us, we see a more condensed, compressed version of it, and we'll see more instances of it as it moves. So even if it's moving a larger distance, it'll optically seem like it's moving a smaller distance. So we'll have a kind of not as wide loops at the edges, and then also the movement will appear slower. That is assuming that it's a sphere, but overall, solid stuff. Cool, nice work. Okay, yeah, so cool. So Jonah, love to see this in context, but good. I remember the thing, so I think it should be good. The path of the smoke seems a little unnatural. I kind of picture something like right, something like that. But yeah. And then to the previous point, Nathan. Again, I'm not sure if there's an orb was the intention, but something like that over here would look something like that, you know. So that's the only kind of feedback I'd give to you. It's effective if you have opportunity to revisit, by all means. But I imagine you have a ton of other stuff on your plate. But yeah, so you try to get that foreshortening here at the edges, and then if this moves this much, or sorry, if this moves say this much in one frame, right over here it would only move like that much, right? And over here it would move like that much, right? Just because of foreshortening. Okay, so I think if you feel like you want to do that, doing that would make like a huge difference in the overall sequence. And one other thing, guys, for the smoke, because we saw, or it's not for smoke but for fire, so you almost want to kind of think of it like as clumps that kind of are moving upwards. Right, so these guys are tracking upwards, and so your last frame has to hook up with your first frame, right? And that's the challenging part, because you gotta almost plan for how each of these is going to move upwards. It becomes like kind of walk cycle territory. And there's no super duper easy way to do it, but if you can break it up into 3 kind of distinct chunks and think like 1, 2, 3, like maybe think of like when this piece ends here, the same piece kind of comes back and starts at the beginning, right? It would kind of cycle through these same 3 chunks over and over again. So the first frame would be this one, maybe now emerging at the bottom, and this one would be at the end, and it needs to look similar to the way the first one looked in some way, shape, or form. So anyways, that is that's how we might approach doing something like a fire or a flame. Okay, so for flames, we can't 100% go straight ahead. We do have to do a little bit of a keyframe, kind of like frame. Oh, I'm totally going blank. We have frame to frame. Man, I've totally blanked out on the principle. Pose to pose. So we do have to probably do a little bit of pose to pose for something like that. Okay. Yeah. So for this, I kind of picture like a kind of almost like a someone poked a hole in a kind of a steam pipe. The steam kind of shoots out and then kind of billows out into smoke. But at first, it's like a jet. Fast jet coming out. We're going upwards. Okay, slime. just grab reference. So definitely get some reference. Feels unreferenced. Okay, so just take a look at, what kind of material is this slime. See if you can find a slow-mo video or a video of it kind of exploding the way you want it to explode. Or, no, I'm not going to say. I was going to say do your own experiment. Do not do that. Unless you're dropping a water droplet into a jar or you kind of filming that, you can film it in slow-mo. You can do that kind of stuff. Or you want to jump and see how the dust kicks up off the ground, you can do that. But don't play with explosions and fire and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so same kind of note with the fire kind of that I made. It does require a little bit more planning. Okay. Cool, not bad. It's a little abrupt, the flash here. And you could probably get the same effect just by making the entire screen kind of totally white itself. But not bad. Great, this is good. Very nice. Cool, I like it. I like how the droplet hangs for a moment before falling. Cool, good job there. Okay, so it just feels unfinished. I'll need to see it in context. Because it looks like the droplets don't fully disappear. And maybe the playback is problematic. Yeah, no, it's something that's... Yeah, no, it looks like the droplets don't fully disappear. So you'll want a frame where they're gone as well. Okay. Same thing, just grab reference. Find reference, even if it's power up and you're making it up. Find references to get inspiration from. Okay. Okay, not too bad. Again, probably grab some reference if this is like some kind of amoeba or something like that. Think about, or if this is a fireball, grab some good reference to kind of make sure that you're doing it justice. Okay, and same thing here. It's a good start maybe for a rough plan, but I think you need to kind of invest a little more time to kind of really get it to where you want it to be. These are cool. It's interesting. Cool. So this is trying to tell the player to jump and not fall. Okay, cool. I don't really know like what it's for, but it's cool. I like it. Looks nice. It's well animated. Yeah, very nice. Good stuff. I can't fully I'll have to see, I guess, what the purpose is in context, but yeah. The smoke is also great. I'd love to see a more final version, but it's solid start for sure. Good. Cool. This is good. Cool. I again love to see it in context, but it looks pretty cool. Lever switch. Okay, so you got some perspective in there too. Not bad. I think it should read in a pixel art game. You might want to shadow, two-tone it. So the bottom half of the square being a slightly darker red, and then maybe the lever when it's up, the lever part is also a darker shade of red to suggest shading. Cool. Cool. I think these work. Pixelated effects. Cool. Okay, I think this one needs some work. It's a start, but it's not an end. You'll need to kind of finalize how these kind of come to a resolution in the end. Okay, cool. Nice reference. See if I'm not gonna check this one out just because it's in Krita. I'll have to look at that one after. So this looks pretty cool. Again, not knowing exactly what its purpose is, but it's animated well, so I think it's kind of cool. Okay, not bad, not bad. So it's a good start. It could be a little stronger, I think. But I think it's fairly
Oh,
effective.
mine was kind of a spell. It's like an earth-based spell.
Oh, okay. Cool. That's Josh, I'm guessing. Yeah, no, it's neat. I think I would love to see it with the final colors and everything in game. But I think it looks solid. This one also is pretty effective. Feels rushed and a little messy, but I think Lightning in that regard is forgiving. But I think you could definitely go for a stronger, more polished, stylized approach to this and get a better result. Okay, so this one's, it just kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. Timing on it actually is great, but I would love to see like more energy invested into fully doing the effect. We have the wick kind of dialing down. Its timing on that is also solid. But again, I would love to see something more animated, something more alive overall. Okay, all right, guys. So overall, some interesting submissions, some solid stuff. A lot of common issues that we've discussed. So I think this is at this point still a work in progress for a lot of you, but hopefully, kind of the feedback I've given today is informs kind of the next step. I'll be honest. I think a lot of you, is probably you just didn't spend much time on it, and that's probably what it is. Either you didn't spend much time on it, or you didn't look at reference. So if you were to do that, you would truly see what you're capable of, all right? But I think not everybody fully put their full effort and energy into it. And I recognize there's other stuff going on. Some of you are responsible for programming for your games, and your focus is elsewhere. But I hope that you see what's possible, and I hope that you do at some point kind of take it upon yourselves to really see what you're capable of in this regard. All right, so next up, okay, we got time. So next up, we want to talk a little bit about like UI animation. We will have an activity for that, and then I want to make sure we have time for anybody who has questions about their animations in game. So if you want to show me how your animations are all coming together, how it looks in game, I'd be super happy to see that and provide you with an opportunity to do any last minute revisions if you feel the need to do so based on feedback. Okay, but before that, let's quickly take a look at effects, not effects animation, but UI animation. So for that, guys, I will be using Blender. You don't have to use Blender. It's just going to be easier for me to demonstrate this. So some people use After Effects, or you can use Flash, or you can use Krita. The nice thing about a program like Blender is that it allows you to do certain things a little bit more quickly, a little more easily. And it's going to be easier for me to demonstrate what I'm talking about. So for UI, it can be all different types of things. It can be like a health bar or health gauge, that kind of fills and refills and depletes. It can be all kinds of other things, and we can quickly just look at a few games. Let's get Steam. And there's a game I was telling you guys about before, Narita Boy, which is available now. Did that work? There we go. Okay, so we have this game, Narita Boy. We'll look at a couple others as well. And we'll just look at, what are... Even in here, man, look at there's something happening here. What's happening? When I hover over a field, it comes to life. Okay, if I hover over this border, it comes to life. It inflates vertically, and I get a sandwich bar. If I hover over one of these titles, it slowly expands, and I actually get a bit of a gleam on it too, kind of an animated gleam, right? And then I get another pop-up coming out to the side. So this is something that we've come to expect. We expect to see some kind of feedback, in any kind of interaction we make in an interactive environment, right? So in a game, on a website, here on Steam, we become accustomed to this. In apps, it's just normal to us, and when it's not present, it feels unnatural. Where is this game? Did it work? Did it crash? What's going on? It's crashing on me? Okay. We'll try something else. So even that, look at the way that fades in, fades out. This color, this screen fades in. First it faded into white, and then the art faded in, and then the title faded in, and then press any button faded in. Not only did it fade in, it fades in, it fades out, it fades in, it fades out. Small things, doesn't require like a lot of frame to frame work, but it gives us feedback. We have some form of feedback when we hover over a field, right? And when I click, something happens. And then we have a little animated thing to show us what's going on. And we have various things that kind of show up on screen, like, and this game, its particular strategy for UI is minimalist, very clean, and very understated, very tasteful, and everything fades in and fades out. There's no blinking on, blinking off, except for the main menu, which is a bit of a departure. But for the most part, things fade in, fade out, right? But here, we kind of have a fade. But here is more of an abrupt blinking in with accompanied by a slight sound effect. Okay, and then even this screen, it's got a nice little border, but all aspects of this project, the presentation has been considered. I haven't played it yet. It looks like I have, but Ori. So I don't know how long this is going to take to load up. So this may or may not be a good choice. I will If I cancel this, will this cause problems? I'm gonna close that. Let's go for Soul Calibur. So whatever you guys do, a lot of your games are more pixelated, but whatever you do, just try to choose a cohesive style. Be aware of the elements of design that you're using and how you're using them, right? Elements and principles of design applies here. Of course, it applies throughout your game, but it's often overlooked when we come to UI, UX. It's an afterthought at that point, a lot of the times. Okay, fade in, fade out. Fade in, fade out. Not nearly as slow as the other game. It's a little bit more abrupt. It's not trying to give us an overall feel, an impression, the same way the other one was. The other one was trying to really make us feel a certain way and kind of put us in the mental framework of its way of doing things. Am I running into problems here? Is this going to work? Am I crashing my machine here? What's going on? Hold on. There we go. Alright, so press any button, black screen, press any button. The button blinks, right? And it stays on that screen momentarily, but it flashes to let us know that it's been pressed. Okay, we have LB, RB. The one that we can press is looks pressable, the other one is grayed out. Okay, so again, this is just, they almost do the bare minimum in terms of presentation here, and these parts is just trying to give me updates. It's not like a artistic, fully curated approach like Manifold Garden was. But still, we have a kind of a nice title screen here. The different options are highlighted. They get bigger when I select something. So it's not 100% animation as we've been looking at animation, but it is something. We could do things like make it kind of overshoot its final position, and then kind of come back and then kind of settle eventually. Let's just do a battle. We get that little clock in the bottom left. This is all nice. This is very kind of well presented. They had some 2D art in there, as well as the 3D characters.
A merchant ship replete with riches attracts more chaos than customers.
Sword, quench your thirst.
Do not delude yourself, thou wretched fool.
Battle one.
Okay, so we get the title text. And let's look at the power, the bars up top. So see how when I do some damage, I used to be good at Soul Calibur too. But see how we get that animation. So not only does the color change, and it stays like that until I'm done dealing damage, or until my combo is finished, but also it also drops and fades transparency.
Fight to your
Okay,
last
so that
breath.
it becomes more transparent. That's cool. Almost all of that is like
Too easy.
programmatic stuff. It's not It is not.
This is it.
It's not something the artist would do necessarily. The artist might make choices or design choices, but it's more of a programming choice. Programming in terms of execution. Let's see the ending here. So you see we get the animated swords kind of coming in, and then the
Victory
KO
will
comes a
not come
beat
easily.
later.
It must be
So
seized.
all that kind of stuff in conjunction with the sound effect, we get the Battle 3 screen there, and then it kind of zooms out, right, while fading. And the timing there is important. So how quickly does it come in? How long or slow does it take to come out? All those things become really impactful overall, right? Let's take a look at a more of a older game. So this is System Shock. This is like a kind of a predecessor to pixelated graphics. They were doing like neat intros, you know, pixelated but fade in, fade out. Right here we have our title screen. Okay, I have a little crosshair. When I hover over something, it lights up. This kind of stuff here. So you can have animated like in-game UI, or you can have like a regular HUD that has things. It's totally up to you guys how you approach it. Let's quit out of this. And then let's look at a modern kind of 2D game. We've looked at Hollow Knight before, I believe. This is a game made by a friend of mine. So he's a solo developer. That, I don't think he did that. I think that was given to him. But his UI is a little simpler. But you see how, like, when you go to talk to somebody, I get a sound effect and I get a little word bubble. Not only is the word bubble moving up and down, but the dot 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 is moving left and right as well. Okay, so even in a very, very simple pixelated game like this, and then when I click on him to move, to talk, the top and the bottom of the screen compress, text comes up top, right? I get a little blinking arrow at the bottom, behind my head, at the bottom right there, so you can kind of see that there's more text. When the text comes in, it's not like blap all at once, it's like da 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 da, and I get a nice sound effect with that as well. Like a typewriter. And then when I stop talking, boom, screen goes back to normal. You can kind of step up the stairs. Text comes, same thing. The title of the person talking. Okay. And then we jump immediately to the next thing, but anytime I want to talk to somebody, I get that okay, when I get hit, my health bar there flashes red. Okay. Okay, we have our menu. Okay, again with like a blinking arrow just to indicate where we are, and also a lighting up of the menu option. as well. All right, so these are small things, easy to overlook, but they add greatly to the overall kind of polished presentation of our projects. I feel like we could look at maybe one more example, but I think hopefully that helps to kind of illuminate kind of what we've been talking about. There is another game that does a great job with this as well, and I've shown it to one of my classes. I can't remember if it was you guys or not, but Kentucky Route Zero. It's really artistic in terms of its presentation. I appreciate the graphic design of it, the overall composition, the color choices, the minimalistic nature of everything. What needs to be seen, it shows you, or it emphasizes only the things that it wants to emphasize. It's very, very deliberate about what it wants you to see and what it doesn't want you to see. And I've got a download here, so I'll just let that go in the background. But hopefully that proves the point that I'm trying to make here to some degree. So a lot of this UI animation stuff you can do programmatically. I'm going to demonstrate here in Blender. Okay, and I'm simply going to add here Shift A. I'm going to add a text object like so, and I'm going to hit tab here. I'll call this start or something like that. Incidentally, there's a cool thing we can do in Blender. I don't know if it works in these newer versions of Blender, but it's worked for me in the past. But you can go to text editor. I can write, say, I'll make a new one here. Let's go start. Let's go on a new game. Load game options exit. So one thing I used to be able to do, I could go here, edit, or is it text, format, templates. So here, if we go to edit, we can go to text to 3D object. I can go one object per line. And this used to work. It doesn't seem to work anymore, unfortunately, which is unfortunate. So I'll just do this the regular way. Just Shift A here, add a text object. Oh, so it did work, it just didn't update for some reason. Okay, so here I have my different text objects, right? And so I can do different things like this. You would probably want to do something like this programmatically. But what I can do is just move this camera back. If I were to look through the camera, let's just say that these were kind of like more so the size of, you know, whatever the text that we want to have in our game. And beyond that, we would kind of work on a couple other things. We would do things like make sure the font is the font we want. So this is just whatever the font, the default font, but I can go in here to my text. And so don't worry about the fact that I'm doing this in Blender. This is stuff that you would kind of work out in Photoshop or Krita or wherever you're generating your UI elements. And then what I'll demonstrate to you is what kind of animations we could do to these. Excuse me, to make it look more visually interesting and appealing. So if we have this, Right here where it says regular, I can click on this and choose a font. If in Blender you want to see what the actual font looks like, you can click the thumbnail mode, and then you can kind of see what that font would actually look like. You can choose a font that is appropriate, right? So you can have, say, this new game. So I can just basically select these and just press Control L, and I can copy certain information from one element to another. I'm just going to copy the font so they all have the same font. And so what I want to do is, you know, maybe when I select it, I want it to get bigger, or I want it to kind of move over a little bit, right? Maybe bounce or something while I am kind of waiting for it or something like that. I want to do something. So what I'll do is I'll just bring in my timeline. And I want to stress again, this is not something you would necessarily do outside of your game, but it is something that you would potentially do programmatically inside your game. You can, of course, also do it outside of your game and handle the animation that way, and then bring it in as an animated element. But it's probably more performance. It's more of a performance optimization if you do the animation in Engine. So if I have this, let's just key all of these here. Or you know what? I'll just take this. I'll make a, go to my dope sheet. And I'll create what's called an action. Make a new action. I'll call this bounce right. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll simply key it. I'll key the location, rotation, and scale here, and then let's say step forward 20 frames. Just move it over like so. Key the location, rotation, and scale. So see, I can kind of basically do that. And then the neat thing is I can go in after. I can add that animation to any of these. Oops. So that's keying its location. Yeah, I don't want to do that. That's okay. So basically a key here, and what I'll do, you guys don't have to worry about this, but just so that I can easily transfer it over to other animations after, I will take its X, or the Y location, and I'll just delete any keyframes that exist on that particular channel. So it's only keying really on the x-axis I need to have keyframed. That way, with this bounce right animation, if I were to put this on a different one, it will just basically move that on its own. It won't move it up and down. It won't copy the exact position. It'll only copy its X and Z position. All right, so that's what I've done here. Okay. All right, so we have this, but we want to do a little bit more with this. So what we're going to do is, I want it to bounce, right? So I want it to kind of move like an elastic, or not like elastic bounce, like a bouncy ball. So I want to get the X location here. Let's just hide our other channels by clicking on the eyeball and then just clicking on the X location. On this initial keyframe, I'm just going to press T. Okay, here my graph editor. Press T, and I'll choose bounce. And that'll give me a bouncing effect. So what's going to happen here? So what happens in my graph editor, this is basically graphing. It's giving me a kind of linear representation of on this channel. So the X position of this particular object. Okay, so the X position, we can see this red line moving left and right. Okay, in the world, we can also see X position here is basically left, right. So over time, okay, so this is time. So frame 0 or frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4, frame 5. This is the value over time, right? So basically the values are on the left-hand side here. It's hard to see, but these are in meters. So at frame 1, my thing is positioned at x1 or x0. Okay, the 0 meter position at frame 1, and then as of frame 8, it's all the way out to frame or meter 1 meter out on the x-axis. Okay, and then it steps back a little bit, comes back a little further. Okay, like less than 1 meter at around frame 11, and then around frame 15 it goes back to 1 or close to 1, and then it steps back, and then it kind of comes to that final position, and it comes to a rest here. Okay, so that's kind of one of the things we could do. We could decide, oh, that's the animation that I want to have, you know, when I click on a button or whatever. Or we could decide, say here, let's do a different one. Let's just key the scale this time. So for load game, so this is, we're not necessarily going to mix and match. We would use the same approach across all of our different animated UI elements. But programmatically, just like I'm doing here, programmatically, you probably want to make something that is flexible. So anything, maybe a function that takes the sprite that you feed it, and then it runs a certain animation, right? So any UI element that you select, it runs this animation effect, or it runs this animation code, right? Where it just kind of makes the thing grow or bounce or rotate or something, right? So let's make this one expand. So on frame 1, it'll be like this, and let's say on frame 20, it will just make it grow. And key the scale here, right? So now we have something like this. We can kind of play around with that and kind of see what makes the most sense for when we click something. We can kind of do focus testing. I know we have testing night tonight, but you could kind of go and test and say, oh, what do you guys like the best? You could kind of poll an audience and see what which effects kind of resonate with them the most strongly. Okay, so that, in addition to, of course, like simple things like what colors are we choosing? So what's my background color? All these things make a very, very big difference in the long run, right? So what's my background color? What is the color of each of my elements? Let's make a material here. Okay, so maybe a selected item can turn yellow or something, you know, and everything else is a different color. Or it's more muted, or it's something, you know, it's dialed back a little bit. So again, it's just stuff to think about, and it's often overlooked. It is not time consuming, but it is something that makes a huge difference in terms of the overall professionalism and quality of a project. Oops, what did I do? Materials. All right, so here we can have something like this. I'd probably want to get rid of this load game animation. Okay, so we just have that going on the one particular object, right? And then when I click through, I would get some kind of animation on each of the different elements. Okay, so that's really it. There's more, I guess, that we could look at, but really it's really just kind of about like looking at games that we've played, not just looking at still images, but looking at and analyzing, how does the non-gameplay stuff actually work? How does the HUD animate? What does that look like? What are the different phases of that animation? Do I need to animate some kind of health bar? Okay, so let's make a new scene here. And let me press Shift A here. I'm gonna make a so I don't expect you guys to be able to do this, but you would probably kind of make this in Krita or Photoshop or wherever. But what I'm going to show you is how we can kind of start thinking about this, right? So let me add a material to this as well. New. And of course we could do this with grease pencil. There's a lot we could do. I'm just using regular polygons just because it's going to be a little quicker and easier at this point. So let's say a full health bar is green, like so. All right, and let's key that. So I'm going to key the color just by hovering over that field and pressing I. I'll also hover over just trying to think how I'll handle this. I'm going to make something called a shape key. Again, don't worry about how I'm doing this. Just think about how you might do this in Krita or with grease pencil. So with this selected, I will make something called a shape key. So I'll make a basis version, and then I'll just click here, call this diminished. Okay, and I'll set the value of this diminished to 1. And what a shape key is basically if I take my geometry and I do something like this, right? I can edit the vertices and it will I can blend from this initial position to this second position. Okay, so when I adjust my value, okay, so this diminished, if I set that all the way to 1, it will lower my health bar, assuming that this is a health bar. All right, and let's get this, let's just choose another material for this. Let us make it, let's add a glow to it, emission. Just make it glow white to make that like kind of stronger. Okay, so if to look at this, we have our basic health bar. And let's add a keyframe to this part. So we've keyed the color on frame 1 at green. Let's go to frame, say, I don't know, 100. And let's key the color to red.
Gavin, is it okay to ask my question now?
Sure. Give me 2 seconds. And then, unless, yeah, go ahead, I guess. Just go ahead and ask. Okay, so I'm also going to just set keys here. So key that, key that. We'll go back to frame 1. This was actually at key that. Okay, so we've keyed those. What I'll also do is just key the shape key. So diminished on frame 1, we'll just leave it here. I'll just again hover over that field and press I to set a keyframe. We'll go to frame 100, set this to 1, I'll hover over it and press I. So now what I get is like a health bar that changes from green to red as it depletes. So that is basically what that looks like. I'm just going to tweak a couple of other things here. Let's key that and key that. Okay, so we basically have a health bar here that that we can export this as an animation. So again, if I look at this through if I were to go here, turn on my film transparency, right, and get a camera. I don't think I have a camera currently in my scene. I'll press Shift A here. Camera. I'll move my camera up like so. So there's a setting here on my navigation panels, my view properties to tie the camera's position to my view. I can select my actual camera, turn on my camera settings, just change it maybe to an orthographic camera, adjust the orthographic scale here, and then also change my dimensions, which I'll have to do up here. And set this to something that we would want to have in our game. So say 1024 by 1024, right? Or something vertically, let's go for 128. Oh, it's too small, 256. All right, so we could basically take this and basically render out this animation. So render animation. I'll choose a location to render it out to. Let's put in our temp. Health bar. Make a new folder. Health bar. Accept. So we would want to render it out as the RPGA. Okay. And basically that just looks like render animation. Should go fairly quickly. Okay, and then we can put that directly into our game. Oops, I accidentally rendered too many frames. Okay, and then I can also do a video format. Let's make this MPEG-4 and also render that out. Let me just change this here to 100. So now if I navigate to that folder, not only do I have all the images, right, in PNG format that I could put into my game, but I also have the video version that I could utilize for different things. So anyways, quick, simple example. I say this mainly to highlight the importance of kind of a well-animated UI, something that's consistent throughout your project, and for you guys to take the time to think about it. Okay, I know you have a lot on your plate, but if you have the opportunity to really dig into this, it will make a big difference. All right, so let's end this here. Anyone who wants to show me their animations in their games, I will spend the rest of the class looking at that. If you don't want to show me something, you're free to go. But if you did want to kind of get some feedback, I will take a look at that at this point. All right, cool. So for this, I think for this we'll just switch over to Google Meets because the latency is not as bad. So I will end the stream here. All right, and I'll rejoin you guys in Google Meet.